Hey guys, Spark from Blade Forums here, and today we are going to do an unboxing video for the Hinderer XM-18 3.5 inch vintage yeah, this is just not working for me. Let's see if we can fix the light a little bit. It's a little bit better. That's a lot better. Okay, so now we got some better light here, but yeah, the camera's not very good. Let's see if we can do something about that. And alrighty, so hey guys, back again. So got a little bit of a better camera now, and hopefully we get some better pictures. Again, we're going to be doing a unboxing video for the Hinderer XM-18 3.5 inch vintage series with the textured walnut scales. This, as you can see on the box, is number 185. Also on the box, you can see 2018 Blade Show Most Innovative American Design. Hinderer won the 2018 Blade Show Most Innovative American Design for the tri-way pivot system, which is something we're going to be looking at further when we open the box here. So, as you can see, Hinderer knives, horse symbol, made in the USA. All Hinderer stuff is made at his factory. Let's get this open and let's take a look at what we have here. So, we have got the knife with the plastic bag and the oxygen desiccant pack. We have got the tri-way pivot system extra hardware, and there's a handy link to how to change out the tri-way pivot system on Hinderer's YouTube channel. Put that over here. We'll come back to the tri-way pivot system. The vintage series blades are made from 01 carbon steel. This steel will rust without proper care. Keep oiled regularly. Always good advice. This knife was hand assembled and tuned by KJ from Hinderer Knives. And we have a Hinderer sticker. So awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the XM-18 3.5 inch vintage series. Textured walnut scales on this. Tri-way pivot system, opens super easily, real nice. Very smooth opener. Alright, so let's take a look at the knife here and go over a little bit of it. As the name implies, XM-18 3.5 inch means it has a 3.5 inch blade. The blade shape here is a spear point, so it's not Hinderer's Spanto, it's not Tanto, it's not any of the other shapes. This is a spear point blade. One of the neat things here is that they parkerized it instead of giving it a PVD coating, because this is, as mentioned earlier, 01 carbon steel. 01 carbon steel used to be popular in the early to mid 20th century. 01 is a oil hardening tool steel. The O stands for oil hardening. And tool steels are used in a variety of applications, from punches to presses, to, of course, knife blades. And keeping with the vintage theme of this, Hinderer parkerized the blade as opposed to giving it a PVD coating or anything other high speed. Parkerizing is a type of rust prevention method that was used back before we had the high speed, super high tech coatings. If you go back to World War II and before, Grandpa's 1911, the Garand, the Tommy gun, all those were parkerized. And it was a method that was better for rust prevention than bluing. They did parkerizing by taking the iron or the steel and dipping it into a phosphoric acid solution that has basically a bunch of zinc or manganese in it. And because of the nature of this treatment, it has to be applied to ferrous metals. You're not going to see this on brass, aluminum, copper, etc. Likewise, if it's a stainless steel or there's a bunch of nickel in it, parkerization isn't going to work there either. So you're just going to see this on tool steels like 01. You're going to see it on 1095. You'd see it on other high carbon steels. On the front of the blade here, we can see that there's the Rick Hinderer knives logo that's been laser marked. You can also see there's a thumb stud on this side. There's also thumb stud on the reverse. Both of these are press fit into the blade itself. On the reverse side, you can see the 01 tool steel and USA laser marked on the blade. All right, looking at the spine view of the knife. The blade is 0.165 inches thick, and it retains that thickness almost all the way up to the tip. So this is something that you can use for hard use. Of course, we never recommend that you use your knife as any kind of lever or screwdriver or pry bar, but if you do need to, then it's not gonna break off very easily at all. And 01 tool steel, of course, is designed to take some abuse. So let's talk some more about the knife itself. You've got obviously a large choil here so you can choke up on it. You've got the flipper. You've got the textured walnut scales. I love the design of the XM-18. I love the ergonomics of the XM-18. It's extremely comfortable in the hand. And, you know, if you've ever listened to me give my opinion on knives, you know that if a knife is not comfortable, you're not going to like holding it. If you don't like holding it, you're not going to like using it. If you don't like using it, you're not going to like carrying it. If you don't like carrying it, it's staying at home. So a knife that is something that you're going to use has to be comfortable and has to be practical. So the XM-18 is really great about that. It carries through on all of Hinderer's designs, whether it's one of his design collaborations with Zero Tolerance like the 566 or the 562. Or if it's the half track or full track, any of Rick's designs are always very comfortable in the hand because they are designed to be tools first. And with this, you can see the large choil up here allows you to choke up on the blade and get further up if you need to do detail work, or you can choke back on it and have a further back grip. One of the other things you'll notice here is that you got a lot of jimping on the blade and on the handle for increased control. So if you've got it in a saber grip and you want increased control, you can choke up and get that right there. There's also jimping on the back of the blade. So if you hold your knife in a reverse grip, then you've got some additional security right there. And there's jimping on the underside and on the lock bar itself. The handle on this is textured walnut. With the Hinderer XM-18 Vintage, the handles were available in two different styles. You had smooth walnut or textured walnut. The textured reminds me of checkering, again, like a 1911 grip from World War II, or Grandpa's old hunting rifle, like a M700 with a checkering on the grip there. I chose the textured grip as opposed to the smooth grip because, in my opinion, a knife that you're going to work with needs to have a secure grip. And in my opinion, the smooth walnut is just going to scratch up and take a bunch of dings. And I don't want that on something that I use. Whereas a textured knife, you know, if you get some more scratches or scars on it, then it's just going to look better. The walnut scale here covers a 0.050 titanium liner that helps give the knife some more rigidity. And for all Rick Hinderer's knives, you can switch out the scale with other scales that he provides. Rick Hinderer is all about the customization. So probably not with the Vintage, but with the standard XM-18, you can switch out the scale to a different style, whether it's titanium or a different color G10 or carbon fiber or other material. Looking at the hardware, you can see that there's 3 screws on the rear half of the handle, and the screws are 5/64 inch and they are used to hold the spacers in place. The screws themselves are brass anodized, and that's evocative of rifle or handgun brass, which is another subtle design choice that makes this knife feel like a piece of military hardware. The screws hold in the spacers here. The spacers have been also anodized in a brass, almost bronzish color, and they give the knife handle more rigidity. Yeah, the standoffs are super beefy. They're going to prevent the knife from being crushed if you're foolish enough to get it run over. I'm not sure how it'd hold up to the guys over on the hydraulic press channel, but for normal situations, this knife is going to take whatever you throw at it. Hinderer makes the screws and the spacers in-house, and as said previously, Hinderer is all about the customization, so they really like for you to be able to modify your knife however you see fit. You can customize it out with different colored screws, spacers, etc. Towards the rear of the knife there's a lanyard hole, and this will accept 550 cord or other retention methods. Alright, flipping the knife over, we can see that the lock side here is made of 6AL 4V titanium, and in this case it has a green working finish. Hinderer did a really great job with the shade. If you've ever spent any amount of time in military vehicles, you'll immediately recognize the color. Me personally, I'm reminded of the Singar's radio mounts that were in the Humvees and 5-ton vehicles that we used when I was in the Army during the 90s. It's not quite like the heavy green finish that you would see on the Korean War era Mermite containers or World War II Mermite containers or other metal with thick coatings, but this is obviously an anodized color that is similar to aluminum, and it really does bring back memories for me. Each vintage Hinderer XM-18 has the serial number laser engraved on the lock side. In this case, it's serial number V0185V for vintage, and that matches the box. Alright, so let's look at the pocket clip. The pocket clip comes mounted from the factory so that the knife is in a tip-down position when it's closed. The pocket clip is held in with 2 Phillips head screws. There's also a plug here that's held in with 2 more Phillips head screws. The purpose of the plug, of course, is to prevent you from damaging the well where the pocket clip will get installed if you choose to carry it in a tip-up position. Basically, if you bang your knife into anything hard, concrete or steel or whatever, and you ding the titanium, that plug will prevent you from damaging the hole, preventing you from mounting the pocket clip. So from the factory, knife comes oriented so that the blade is in a tip down position, but you can orient it, or you can switch the pocket clip around so that it is tip up. The XM-18 has a frame lock, and from the factory it looks like the lock here is engaging around 25%, so there's plenty of room for future wear. The lock also has a lock bar insert, the purpose of which is to prevent galling. If you're not aware, galling is metal-to-metal friction where your knife can become stuck when you open it too hard. And that can happen with knives with flippers and bearings. You can just put a huge amount of force on the opening and your knife can get stuck. And all that force does cause the knife blade to wear in more. And with the lock bar insert, instead of having to throw away the entire lock bar side, you can just replace the insert with one that has additional tolerances in it, and your knife will be good to go. The XM-18 3.5 Vintage also comes with a lock bar stabilizer. In this case, it's hidden underneath the pocket clip, but we'll lift it up and get a better view of it here. Alright. So, like the screws for the standoffs, the lock bar stabilizer has been anodized in a brass finish. Now, for those who aren't familiar, the purpose of a lock bar stabilizer is to prevent over travel. It prevents the frame lock itself from breaking when you are closing the knife. If you push too hard on the lock itself when disengaging the blade, then it's possible to bend the lock outwards, preventing the knife from locking up at all. The lock bar stabilizer here acts as the over travel stop and prevents the knife lock from going past the plane here on the lock bar side. So you're not going to bend this to the point where it fails and you won't be able to lock your knife again. After an incident where he broke a frame lock knife while wearing gloves on a fire call, Hinderer came up with the lock bar stabilizer as a way of preventing this from happening in the future. So last but not least, let's talk about the tri-way pivot system. You may remember the sticker on the box from the 2018 Blade Show award here for Most Innovative American Design, and that was awarded for the tri-way pivot. You can see the logo laser marked right here at the tip of the flipper. That means that this knife has the tri-way pivot system installed. So how the tri-way pivot system works is that on this side of the blade there is a pocket milled into the blade itself around the pivot, and inside that pocket rests steel bearing system that the knife rides on. And there's also a corresponding pocket milled into the lock face on this side of the blade. So there's a pocket in the handle here, there's a pocket in the blade in here, and you've got two bearings sandwiching the blade to the handle, and that is what the knife rides on. Now, the tri-way pivot may not be for everyone. You may be in situations where bearings are not appropriate. If you're in dusty or dirty environment and you're getting a bunch of sand and grit in there, then the pivot may not, or the bearings may not work for you. So if that is the case, then Hinderer provides you with hardware so that you can switch out the pivots for something else. Now, because of the brightness here, you may not be able to see the washers or the nylon washers that come with this, but each of the Hinderers with the tri-way pivot system will come with all the hardware you need to switch that over from the bearings to either the phosphor bronze washers that you can see here, or the white nylon bushings that you can see pictured here as well. In addition, you'll see two metal spacers in there. Those are absolutely a requirement if you're going to be switching out from the tri-way bearings to the phosphor bronze or the white nylon washers, because the bearing system is 62 1/1000ths thick, whereas the washers themselves here are only 15 thousandths thick, and you need the spacers to make up for that extra difference. Unfortunately, because of the milling involved on the blade and the lock bar for the bearings, you cannot upgrade a previous generation Hinderer to the tri-way pivot system. I mean, I guess you could if you had your own CNC machine and you wanted to mill out pockets and that, but it's just, if you're going to go through that much effort, I mean, me personally, I would recommend you just buy a new Hinderer and call it a day instead of trying to bork up your previous generation. From the factory, the Hinderer XM-18 3.5 vintage comes installed with the tri-way pivot system bearings. If you do choose to switch out the bearings to the phosphor bronze or nylon washers, you'll have to dismantle the knife on your own. That's easily done if you have the Hinderer Armorer's tool. The nice thing about the Armorer's tool here, unlike your garden variety flathead screwdrivers, that the tip of the Armorer's tool fits exactly into the space that is in the pivot there. So you're not going to mar or damage or scratch or ding up your pivot if you use this. On the reverse side of the Armorer's tool is a split spanner wrench that fits into the spanner portion of the pivot screw. If you disassemble the Armorer's tool, inside you will find a removable bit that will fit the screws at the rear of the knife. This is a 5/64 inch driver. So the Armorer's tool will work for the XM-18 and you won't need any further outside tools, just this. And you'll be able to disassemble and maintain your knife completely. Armor's tool is sold separately, but available from your favorite retailers. For people who are curious about the size of the XM-18 3.5 compared to other items, this is a Rick Hinderer XM-18 3.0 inch model. As you can see, the XM-18 3.5 has got a bit of a larger blade. Here is a zero tolerance 0566. And here is a zero tolerance 0562 in carbon fiber. As you can see, the 0562 is slightly larger than the Hinderer XM-18, a bit longer in the handle. The 0566 is slightly smaller. Other items for scale comparison: quarter for scale, fidget cube for scale, Sharpie for scale, Surefire Fury for scale, Claymore Mine Clacker for scale. So folks, that was the XM-18 3.5 inch vintage overall view. Let's go back over it one more time, cover the specifications. The XM-18 3.5 has a 3.5 inch blade made of 01 tool steel. The cutting edge on this is 3.25 inches. It has a closed length of 4.75 inches and an overall length of 8.25 inches. The blade style is spear point. It has a flat ground blade, and the finish on that is a black parkerized finish. The handle material here is textured walnut. It is also available in the smooth walnut, but again, I personally don't recommend the smooth because it's just going to show damage if you use your knife in any kind of rough manner. Underneath the walnut scale, there's a titanium liner that's 0.050 inches thick. The locking mechanism is a frame lock. The entire lock side is made of 6AL4V titanium that's been finished in Hinderer's green working finish. The pivot assembly has bearings, but you can also switch them from the Hinderer bearing system to white nylon or phosphor bronze washers. The knife weighs 5.2 ounces. It's made in the US, designed by Rick Hinderer, and it retails for $465. Once again, folks, Rick Hinderer XM-18 3.5 inch vintage series, and we hope you have a great day.